What are them sons of fishes up to now?
Fellas, I give you the force trolling motor. It is the most powerful, the most efficient on the water.
Yep. Most powerful. We're really in trouble now.
And it's quiet, too. You can't swim here.
What a dumb bass.
Boom, and there you have it, 7:30 on the dot. We are just sitting behind the scenes here thinking we have absolutely nailed it tonight. It started on time, there's no screw-ups. Big hint for ABT live watchers, if you just see a whole heap of ads keep going until about 10 minutes past the start time, it means we're fixing something up in the background. Important tip there. But welcome to show number 20. We've been going for over a year now. We have axed lockdown from the name. We are ABT Live, and we come to you monthly from here at the ABT offices to bring you up to date with what's been happening, who's been winning tournaments, what's going on behind the scene with the sponsors, and occasionally, just occasionally, we check in overseas with Bassmaster Elite pros like Carl Jocenson and a secret guest on tonight in that segment. We go through the Angler of the Year points and see who's winning what. We talk to some of the product developers, the sponsors, the anglers. Everything happens on ABT Live. Who wants to watch the footy when you could be watching this? So we've got probably an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of content for you tonight. And as always, we're giving away plenty of prizes. You may have seen it in our social media posts, but we have this little puppy to give away tonight. It's the Concept TX2 right-hand bait caster from 13 Fishing, naming sponsor of our Bass Pro Series this year, worth just under $500. And we're going to be giving it away. We do have the Rapala crew in later tonight. That's why we got the Rapala hat, the 13 Fishing shirt, 13 Fishing distributed by Rapala. Got the crew in later tonight to talk about all things 13 Fishing and Rapala. We have other things on the show tonight. We have Joey Allen from Atomic is going to preview for us the Ballina brim round, which is happening in a couple of weeks. Word on the ground is the guys had a great time pre-fishing there last weekend, and there's going to be plenty of fish to be had. There are some boater spots still available for that tournament if you want to enter. Not too late. Come and do it. We also have on tonight Steve Waffam from Green Marine Lithium Batteries. His first segment he did in his first show was really, really popular, and you ABT anglers and viewers supported him greatly. He sold plenty of batteries, plenty of free charges went out the door with them. So that was his Lithium Batteries 101 segment. Tonight we go a little bit deeper into some battery management system stuff, some charging stuff, some cabling stuff, and we're talking to Steve again. He's always fascinating to talk to, bringing you up to speed on lithium batteries. We've got a Show Us Your Boat segment, and who would we line up for that but the Clarence River Boater Pro Champion Chris Banks. He's also leading the Bass Angler of the Year at the moment, so we're going to check out his Mercury-powered Nitro bass boat. We have the Rapala crew in, which is Matt from marketing, and we call him now Aussie Seth. It's Mitch Petty, who's one of their product development guys there, and of course a non-boater in the ABT tour. We're going to catch up with those guys later on. And of course, it wouldn't be an ABT live show unless we've caught up with Carl Jocenson, telling us all about the highs of this year and, of course, some of his lows. And you know what? If you're like me and you're a Carl follower, it goes like this. Woohoo! Tears. Woohoo! Tears. You know what it's like. But we love it when he does well, and we love his determination when he doesn't. So we catch up with Carl later in the show. Now, before we get cracking with some of the events and Angler of the Year stuff, we do have prizes tonight. The mechanism for this prize here, how are you going to win it? You are going to tell us what you would like a 13 fishing rod designed for. The guys are in later tonight. They're telling us about the design process. You can see on the bottom of the screen there. Comment below on what species you'd like a 13 fishing rod designed for. Now, it doesn't matter if you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube. Nicole, the king of the live presentations, she scans both of those and she will pick out her favourite one tonight. Someone is going to win that reel. It's not a consolation prize, but we have other prizes tonight. We have some of the fantastic Tackle Titan lure racks. These are sold through ABT's tournamentboats.com.au shop. We've got a big one, plus the little Tackle Titan Mini, just holds 4 lures, that one, whereas the big one holds 8 lures. Tell us where you're from. That's the standard mechanism for a lot of our ABT live shows. Drop it in the comments below. Where are you watching from? Mike Sutcliffe, I'm not sending you one in Singapore, sorry. I'll give you one when you come to the grand final in our Trouble Bubble later this year. But let us know where you're from, and I've got a couple of great sets of that Tackle Titan gear for you to give away. FYI, if you need this for your boat, they come in black and white. They're $40 on the tournament boat stores. These minis, I think, are only $20 or $25. They're quite cheap. And they just kind of fix to your boat with a bit of the double-sided tape. So don't have to screw any holes in your boat. Once you see them in use, you are going to want one. What's been happening lately? Let's talk about it. We had coming up, we've got the Bass Round at Cania. That's happening in the start of June. That's sponsored by VMC. We'll talk about that a bit later tonight. We have the Richmond River Brim event happening in another couple of weeks. Both of those venues should be fishing really well. That's at the end of May. And Bass Electric coming up, the next Bass Electric series, and the BKK Bass Electric series is at Maroon Dam on the 13th of June. Now, if you want to see all of the coverage from our previous events, of course, we've been to the Clarence. We had a cracking event at the Clarence. And Foster, well over 50 boats to Foster. All of that's available on the webpage, which is www.abt.org.au. We've got video highlights from both the days. We've got winners' interviews. We've got photo galleries from the start, from the weigh-in. All of the coverage you could ever want. Go to that results page on the website, click on the event, and it is all lined up for you there. You don't even have to go and find it everywhere. We bring it all to one place for you. In particular, the guys at Foster were fantastic at running cameras. We had 15 cameras in the field on the first and second day of that Foster event, and there is a plethora of footage of guys catching and getting busted off by great brim of the racks. Likewise, in the Bass tournament, we have all of Chris Banks's winning fish, bang, right on video. So go to the website and check them out. Now, let's talk about some Angler of the Year standings, and let's start with the Daiwa Brim Series. After Foster, we've completed 3 events there now: Gippsland, Lake Mac, and Foster. I think Nicole's going to bring up the thing. We are going to see that Mark Crompton there is leading the pack. He's had no real high finishes, in the top 20 in Gippsland and Lake Mac, and a top 10 at Foster puts him top of the pile with 459 points. Tommy Slater's following up, who's had 2 good events and 1 fair old choking for 256 points, 3 points behind. And Chris Hickson, as consistent as always, bringing up 3 events there with a couple of chokings and 1 top 10. So no one has really taken advantage of really no nails have been put in the coffin in the Angler of the Year. 4th place, Paul Langley. Jason Mayberry, previous grand final winner, in 5th. Grant Oliver in 6th. Brett Crow in 7th. I'm sitting in 8th. Wally Fay in 9th, and Scott Wilson in 10th. So the boater side of it is open for the taking if someone can string together a few good events. Let's go to the non-boater side of it, and there's no surprise there with 2 event wins so far this year. Stewie Walker, 297 points for 3 events. He's only got 2 events left in Australia before he pisses off back to New Zealand. But I tell you what, a couple more top tens and he is going to be hard to catch. John Parkinson got a couple of good finishes there and fell a bit behind at Foster. Jake Aitken, the young fella who you'll see in the highlights of the Foster Day 2, sitting in third. Neil Kelly, previous grand final winner, in fourth. Cole Wilson in fifth. And Gordon Pullen in sixth. They're the anglers that have fished all of the 3 events that we've had so far. So pretty interesting at those the Angler of the Year tables. Non-boaters, it's there for Stewie to lose, but in the boater division, it is anyone's there to win. Let's jump across to the 13 Fishing Bass Pro Series. Let's have a look at the boaters. And off his win at the last event, Chris Banks is leading that event. He's got a first and a third place, sitting on 198 points. Mike Nelson with 2 strong finishes, only 5 points behind in 193 points. Dylan Walsh, the young fella from northern New South Wales, sitting in third with 2 paychecks. Mitch the Clown Cone in fourth on 189, and Matthew Langford sitting in fifth at the moment with 182 points. Reading down the list, Lloyd Brown, Dane Price, Graham Ford, Corey Goldie and Brian Everingham bringing up the top 10. That is a powerful top 10, and it's going to be interesting to see when we go to Cania just how that shakes up. In the non-boater side of things, and for the bass, Tony Neal leading with a couple of, looks like 5th places there. James Browning in 7th with a strong finish at the Clarence. Michael Goodwin from northern New South Wales sitting in 3rd. Kelvin Hatton done 2 events and he stumbled a bit in the first one but won his second one. We hear that KFC is naming a champions box after him. And Bo Everly from Grafton sitting in 5th. Reigning at the top 10, Victoria's Nick Brown, Jason Sheehan, Aidan Bickle, Jake Hardy and Sean Walsh, who of course started off his Bass Pro non-boating career with a win down at Glenbourne. So there's a bit of a summary of where we're at with the Bass and the Brim, the Boater non-boater series top 10s. As I said, there are plenty of, I think there's 4 or 5 spots for boaters left at the moment for both that Cania and the Richmond River event. If you're a non-boater and want to enter that event, we still need more than that boaters to enter, but we will do, as always, all we can to get you guys a spot. So let's enough of me crapping on tonight. Let's talk about some of the segments we got coming up. After an ad from our sponsors, we have Joey Allen coming up from Frogley's Offshore to talk to us about Ballina.
Hey guys, Major League Fishing Pro Randy Howell here, bringing you the Power Stick 53 with 2 USB ports to keep your camera charged all day. If you're like me, you've been out recording with your camera trying to catch fish and all of a sudden the battery dies and boom, you're dead. Not anymore with Power Stick. How's it work? Man, it's simple. Every boat has a nav light like this, but you store it away during the day. Simply take the Power Stick, plug it in the hole, lock it down. If you're serious about catching great video on the water, get Power Stick 53. Catch all those great memories like hook sets, top water explosions, and even landing the biggest fish of your life.
So it's been a few years since we've been at the Ballina venue for ABT Brim. Of course, the Richmond River, famous for close finishes in the bass events. We're there for the Bass Grand Final again this year, but maybe not a lot of people know that there is an awesome brim fishery down the mouth end of it. And I've got Joey Allen here from Atomic, a brand of Frogley's Offshore. Joey, you live right smack back in the middle of this brim and mecca.
Yeah, and I actually fished that comp, the one that you're talking about. I think it was it
2017?
4 years ago. And it was an interesting one. There was some really good bags on the first day from memory.
Yep.
Second day was a bit more of a struggle.
Yep.
And there was a couple of, the normal spots downriver that really fired, but I do remember some nice fish getting caught upriver as well.
It's an interesting part of the world because it seems to be, if it's ever going to rain anywhere between Sydney and Brisbane, it's going to rain in Ballina and Coffs Harbour. They're the 2 places it rains, isn't it? So,
and Tomogan, you can't forget that one, mate.
Well, that's where you live, of course. You're on the next system up on the Tweed, so you've always had an affinity for that north coast of New South Wales. You're living the dream there now, working with Michael Starkey down there at Frogley's Offshore.
Yeah. I'd like to say he's living the dream working with me, but you can put it however you want.
Well, we'll ask the AFTA president that maybe later on. But, Joey, I want you to put into context the river this year. You fished that tournament 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
This year, of course, a whole lot of the mid-north coast up into southeast Queensland copped a fair dump of rain, probably nearly 2 months ago now. How is the river clearing up, and is it going to be very brimmy when the tournament's on?
Yeah. Well, there's actually been we had a flood this year, It was only a minor flood this year. There was a minor one last year. And at the end of midway through 2017, before that last tournament, there was actually the biggest flood in probably 25 years on the North Coast. So from that respect, it's probably looking very similar in that we've had a flood leading up to an event a couple of months later. Same with this one. We've had a flood at the start of the year, one at the end of last year as well, and then we're leading into the tournament. So the good thing about a flood is it gives a bit of a reset for everything. You'll find some sandbars that are now there that weren't there before. You'll find some things that are just totally different to. Oh, thank you. Totally different to anything that you've seen over the last little while. So I really like when a flood comes through because it kind of brings everyone back to the field a little bit. Even the local guys that would be able to get out and fish it every week for the last couple of years, it's probably a little bit different than what they're expecting now.
The word on the street from the guys that pre-fished on the weekend said the river was fishing pretty well. Tell us how it works. We're getting into a moon at the end of May. We're a couple of days after the full moon. Like there should be some decent spawning fish going on in the bottom of that river.
There already is a few. I can think that probably by another couple of weeks' time, it's going to be even better again. That's if you like to fish deep. If you like that style of fishing, then it's probably going to be on. So the bottom end of the river at the moment it's clean, like it's clean like normal. That's on the run in, not a problem. The bottom of the run out, it is a little bit dirty. That's most systems along the east coast are still running a little bit dirty at the bottom end of that run out tide.
It was interesting at the Clarence Bass event only a few weeks ago. There were the guys that fished, downstream from Grafton between there and Maclean. They were plagued by brim and flathead in pure, fresh, muddy water. And your instinct was the bass were going to be down further than they were. But tell us, those brim, all of those saltwater species, just because it's dirty, doesn't mean they're not in it, does it?
Absolutely not, mate. I caught a trevally at Coracai about 4 weeks ago, and it was a thumper. And we were drain fishing after a fair bit of a downpour. And we were thinking, this school on the sounder was unbelievable. We're thinking we're going to smash these fish here. Caught one bass, and then I caught a trevally next cast, and then that was it. and what would Coracai be, mate? It'd be
60, 70 kilometres.
A long way upstream. And we were catching trevally. I've caught brim in Lismore, which is another 40 k's upstream from Coracai. So. You don't have, the bottom end of the system around those walls isn't necessarily where it's going to be won, I don't think. I think if you look at the tournaments, I'm talking team tournaments, the Gamma series that we've had here over the years, the bottom section is always great for one day. It's always good. But if you want consistency over a couple of days, the amount of pressure that's going to get through the first the practice day and then also the first day competition, Sunday, I think it's going to be a bit of a hard slog.
Well, that's an important tip for people that are maybe coming here to have a go. Yeah, I agree. I think the system it's not as robust as say somewhere like Foster that can take that pressure day after day after day. It's a little bit more of an enclosed system. There's a lot of rivers to fish. Like by the time you put in North Creek, Emigrant Creek, the main, there is an epic amount of water to fish down there. But
it's actually what people don't realise, lengthwise, it's massive. You can run from Lismore to from Ballina to Casino in one arm, and that would probably take you driving Steve Morgan style like a bat out of hell. No, Jono, I don't want a redskin. Give me that later. That would take you probably hour and 20 minutes to do that. To go to Lismore, probably about the same, but then it splits again. You can go to Nimbin one way, or you can go out to Bexhill the other way, another half hour, 40 minutes each way. So it is a massive, massive system. But you're right, at times it is quite narrow. But a lot of water comes through there. And I think that's people get put off by the fact that it is a smaller, quite a narrow system compared to like the Clarence.
Yeah.
Where the Clarence is, from the mouth to Coppenhurst, you're probably looking at about an hour. Would you reckon that'd be about right?
I reckon
No, maybe an hour 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on how hard you got your foot down.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, we're talking, like I said, we're talking Steve Morgan style. So, they're funny in that they're so close together, the two systems, but they can fish so differently at times as well.
Let's have a bit of chat about Atomic as the naming sponsor of this round. Michael's always been a great supporter of ABT, both from a fishing point of view. That sort of 15 to 5 years ago, he was right into it. Like the bottom of his skeeter had no gel coat on it because of the amount of shallow Moreton Bay fishing he loved doing.
Yeah.
But Atomic, of course, have baits that have been really popular. I remember winning the grand final on the old Deep Crank 38, which I think must be one of your stalwarts in the brim fishing range.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Apart from the Deep 38 crank and that crank range, what other Atomic products you think are going to play in this tournament?
So if we're if we're talking deep styles, the metals, the blades, the Atomic metals, probably in the 35 mil or the 40 mil. At times, I think the blade is a bit of a forgotten gem in the tournament world. There's so many other techniques that have come in over the last couple of years, which are all well and good, but a little piece of metal with a couple of trebles sticking off it still catches so many fish. And there's such an easy technique to kind of use as well. And they don't snag up for you. When you do get them snagged, you just drive over the top of them, pull them off. Or you can snap them off and go and buy more Atomics afterwards. That's also
that's good by you, is it?
Yeah, that's not a problem. But so the metals down deep, that's definitely going to play. Along all your rock walls, you mentioned it there. You crank 38 deep, can't go wrong. It's the simplest and easiest crankbait to use. If I'm taking people out that have no idea how to throw a lure, even if they do, give them that one. It's such a simple one. The other technique that kind of gets lost a little bit on the Richmond, which is very popular around the Gold Coast, is jerk baiting structure. Whether that's boat hulls, pontoons, things like that. There's plenty of floating stuff around the Richmond, nowhere near as much as the Gold Coast, but you could definitely, get a bit of a game plan or a milk run happening of, that type of structure and when you're tuning them to really get up underneath things, there's some big fish, big resident fish that, don't move. And that's probably one thing that people forget this time of year. Not every fish in the system runs down the river to have some hanky-panky. They do actually kind of, sit and wait. Not everyone actually moves.
That's awesome, mate. And of course, the Samurai rods have been a big player in the past for a lot of the guys. Everyone who's sponsored by Frogley's Offshore runs a whole quiver of those Samurais, and I reckon it must have six figures worth of tournament wins behind them. Those things.
Yeah, definitely. But the rods that have come in that have been unbelievable for us in the last couple of years, which are the probably that lower end of the tournament market, I would say. They're certainly not a cheap rod by any means, but when we're talking tournament guys, everyone loves to have the expensive stuff. Is the Arrows range?
Yeah. They're very affordable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be the first one to stick up my hand when Michael said we want to bring in a brim crank and a brim surface. It's like, mate, we probably don't need to pigeonhole them specifically for those techniques. And he said, no, I'm going to do it. I don't care what you say.
Yep.
As if Michael would say that, but he did it. And to be honest, they've been two of our best sellers in the whole range. And they've been very well received by tournament anglers around the country as well.
I must admit, I host a lot of non-boaters on my boat, and it was only my last non-boater at Foster, Brian Wiltshire, was using his Atomic rods, and loves them. They're the right price point, and you can get a whole quiver of them. So that's cool, mate. We have the briefing for this event. We have it at Bretto's shop at Ballina Bay, Tackle. How good is his shop? Like, I know he stocks a lot of your products in there, but if you're a travelling tournament fisherman, he's sort of got everything you need. It is, and it's got more stuff in it than even he knows about, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's you can find some gems in there, that's for sure. That's probably the one thing that's probably to his detriment, is that there's so much gear in there but it's also his biggest advantage is because there is so much gear in there.
I really sort of miss the old days. Like nowadays, I go into a lot of tackle shops. It's all pretty clinical.
Yeah.
Like everything's, organised and neat, and there's nothing hiding. But man,
Yeah.
you can go behind the veil there, and you'll find stuff from a decade ago that you just thought you could never get anymore.
Yep.
And you'll take it to the counter. You'll say, "Oh, I didn't know I had that."
And then he'll go one in his pocket for his boat and one for you.
Exactly right. So no, it's good to have a local tackle store in town who is an ABT angler.
Yep.
The shop is a corporate sponsor of ABT, and it's good to be in the backyard of Atomic as well. I always know that Mick Starkey likes putting on a show. We haven't really refined what he wants to do yet, but there'll be something awaiting anglers either at the briefing or somewhere during the
sure that there will. Yeah.
No coming to Ballina without some sort of Michael party going on.
That's right. Yeah.
Mate, thanks very much for taking the time to join us this afternoon. I don't know if we're going to see you at the briefing or not, or maybe even turning the boat over and coming and entering as a boater. We're still looking for a few more boater entries.
I actually can't. I'm right in the middle of my wife doing work placement at that time. So unfortunately, family has to come first on this occasion. But yeah, whether it's Michael or myself, one of us will be at the briefing for sure.
Awesome.
Doing something, yeah.
Awesome, mate. Well, I appreciate you joining us on the show, mate. Thanks for joining us on ABT Live.
No problems.
One of our recent clients got into his first investment property without any extra out-of-pocket expenses. We refinanced and we put him in a much better place that even with buying a new investment property, he was actually paying less than what he was paying on his current mortgage.
So now we have the two properties and not paying a cent more, which is just brilliant.
They've helped us basically secure 3 properties over a 5-year process.
Now onto our third property, hopefully onto our fourth. And one of the most important things in our strategy is having good team members around us, and Neil's been a driving force and one of the biggest components of us being able to achieve what we're onto now.
I'm Neil Carstairs from Mortgage Corp, your property investment mortgage specialist. To find out how I can help you save money, stress less, and help you plan ahead, go book a strategy session at mortgagecorp.com.au.
There you go, and I'll just add that Neil Carstairs from Mortgage Corp, absolute champion sponsor of ABT, and especially of anything live we do with ABT. I can guarantee we would not be doing this show now without Neil Carstairs and Mortgage Corp support. So if you want to turn your house mortgage into more fishing money, get him to restructure it for you, and that can happen. So big shout out to Neil there. Now, the next person we have on ABT Live is from Green Marine Lithium. It's Steve Waffham. He's talked to a lot of ABT anglers. A lot of ABT anglers have got his product on the boat now because they love getting rid of 50 to 100 kilos of excess weight out of their boat and repowering with voltage holding, lightweight, fast charging lithium batteries. And if you want to check out the first story we did with Steve, it's on their Green Marine Energy website. You can see it embedded there, or you can see it on the ABT channel. It's on there as well. But in this segment, he goes a little bit deeper into what lithium batteries can do for you. Before we go to the segment, just remember that the 2 comps we have running tonight, let us know what 13 rod you want to have designed to go with some of these 13 reels. You can win this 13 Fishing TX2 reel. And also let us know where you're from. For our let us know where you're from people, we have a couple of the Tackle Titan minis that are available from tournamentboats.com.au. So let's go and have a chat to Steve.
You'll have the chance for showers or thunderstorms, and also little disturbances rumbling along this thing will bring us a chance for rain.
All right, we have our star guest in the studio right now. We did a segment with him before, Steve Waffham from Green Marine Lithium. Really popular segment we did last time. He just gave us the basics of lithium, you know, the obvious weight advantage, the charge advantage, and just the overall advantage for running a boat full of lithium. But we're going to be doing lithium batteries 102 today. Talk a little bit more in depth about some of the products you do, some of the battery management systems, and maybe dig a little bit into some of the cabling options you're going to need for your boat. So, Steve, welcome back to the ABT studios.
Thanks for having me.
And how good were the ABT members and the viewers of this show in getting back to you and getting their free charger offer?
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we had a lot of people take up the free charger offer, and it's really taken off. And lots of good questions too, so people are interested to find out a bit more about lithium.
And I think, as we said in the first segment, you know, this year, or nearly post-COVID, is lithium's coming of age, really. Like, you know, I've been running lithiums for 10 years. Used to be hard to get. You had to be very delicate with them, never over-deplete them, and they never come back. But nowadays, you've got smart, reliable batteries that can do a whole lot of things we're going to look at later in the show. And there are more guys out there with them now. Like, I reckon maybe every third boat in ABT now probably runs lithium batteries.
Yeah, and look, I think in the early days, 10 years ago, they were trying to replicate lithium batteries to be used in boats and things like that. Nowadays, lithium batteries are designed for boats and golf carts and caravans. So yeah, that's where we are now.
Now, before we start this, I don't know if you cringe as the rest of us do when you see the cheap Chinese lithiums opened up and it looks like it's been made by about a grade 4 science class. Do you cringe like everyone else when you see that? And what do you have to watch out for the nasty operators on the market?
Yeah, look, there is some low-cost batteries entering in the market at the moment. The cylindrical cell batteries look like AAA batteries. They're the ones to try to avoid. Reason being is that they're soldered together and they're held together with little plastic holders. So if one of those batteries comes loose or the solder pops off, solder isn't very strong,
yep.
The whole battery is ruined.
Yep.
Secondly, there is some recycled lithium entering the market now, which it's still a reasonably good product, but it won't have the lifespan. And I suppose a good rule of thumb is if you see a very small warranty period, that's the thing that should start to raise the first alarm.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I suppose in our dealings with you, we've been talking with a few years now. I'm really impressed with your ability to custom build batteries for certain situations. Like, we have the crank batteries and we have the 24-volt batteries that fit into our current battery trays. But you've got this unit here. What was that? You know, these sort of cases, they can fit in all sorts of crazy areas, can't they?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no real standard at the moment. So, part of our strategy is to meet with lots of end users, talk about their boats and caravans and golf carts, and actually see what they need. So that gives us the opportunity, because we manufacture in Australia, that we can make these particular shapes and sizes. The other reason we manufacture in Australia is we actually know what goes inside the batteries.
Yeah.
You've probably all seen some horror stories come through when people open up their batteries and it's not what they thought they were going to get.
Yep.
It just happens, unfortunately. When a battery arrives, you really don't know what's inside it. But because we make it, we know what goes inside it. So.
Now, one of the things that I did notice is some people buy a lithium battery nowadays. They go for the cheap battery and they think they're buying like a 100 amp hour equivalent battery. They're not getting it, are they?
No, absolutely not. There is some misleading suppliers out there, and some of them are quite reputable, really. And it's very difficult to determine whether you've got the right type of battery. But a very loose rule of thumb is 12 volt 100 amp hour weighs about 11 kilos.
Yeah.
If it's less than that,
you're not getting
you're not getting it. So that's very. But
yeah.
We have the Bluetooth app in ours, so that allows customers to see exactly what's inside the battery.
Yeah.
When they consume power, they can see it's actually what it is. If anything, we actually put in a bit more in our batteries than we state. So 100 amp hours is actually 105.
Yeah.
And we hope to be developing some more devices for people that they can actually start to check their batteries. They're getting what they pay for, really.
Well, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. We're going to talk about the battery management systems that are on these lithium batteries. Of course, the lithium battery is made up of the cells, the material which holds the charge and discharges the charge, but it's all controlled by circuit boards and stuff that's way too technical for me in there. But tell me exactly what the BMS does.
Well, the BMS it's like a mini computer, I suppose. There's a set of parameters that are set to protect the battery and the cells from overcharge, over voltage, over temperature, all those sort of things. what our Bluetooth BMS allows people to do is they can actually see each cell and what it's charging and discharging. They can look at the temperature of the battery. They can look at resistance and things like that. When something falls outside that stated parameters, the battery will shut down and protect itself.
Yep.
When, say, the voltage drops back down to within the parameters, it'll start back up again.
Yep. So if you take your lithium battery out, you use it until it dies. It's not really dead. All it's done is it shut itself off so that when you add a charger to it, it can then get it back up to its full capacity.
Yeah, our batteries are set when one cell drops below 2.4 volts, the battery management system will shut down. That's just one of the cells that's in there.
Yep.
Now, the BMS will probably balance a few cells, and then it might be available to consume a bit more.
Yep.
But there's still 2.4
Yep.
volts in there, and then the charger comes on and away it goes.
And it all gets recovered. One of the cool things you were showing me before we started filming was the fact that that your BMSs on these green marine lithium batteries are smart enough to take all sorts of charges onto a lithium. I've always heard the story, you need the lithium charger to charge the lithium battery. What's going to go on here?
Well, look, that is true in some other brands of batteries, but for our batteries, they can take just about any charges. We do get a few ones that will probably only charge it to 90% because the charger's got a set up to say I can only put so many volts in. Yep. It'll still charge. It's just a setting in a charger. But this battery here is a 12 volt, 120 amp hour battery.
Well, let's show you on the iPad what we're going on here, because you've Bluetooth connected it to the battery management system app.
Yes.
Here. So, and I'm just going to start recording this screen so we can drop it in and you guys can see exactly what we're doing. So we're going to start recording there, and away you go.
Great.
So tell us what's going on this screen, and we're going to put this up on the screen for you guys to see as well.
So at the very top there is, you'll see 13.1 volts. So that's what the total voltage of that battery is at the moment. And then across from that is the amp hours, which will either be discharged or charged into the battery when it's being used. Yep. Then it also records the battery power in watts.
Yep.
Then we set the battery capacity, and that one's set at 120. And then the opposite side tells you exactly how much is remaining in that battery, and I think it's 111.7 at the moment at 93%.
So, and you can run this, you don't have to run on an iPad, you can run it on your phone. If you want to check on the battery, just crank up the app, connect via Bluetooth, and you can see all this data.
Yeah, and the beauty is you can actually start to manage your power. People don't know at the moment, connect your battery, how long it's going to last. Often lead acid batteries voltage will be a good indicator because lead acid batteries reduce in voltage as they discharge. Lithium maintains the same level of voltage till the end. So if you've got high voltage, you're not necessarily still got.
You might be near the end or at the start.
You wouldn't know, but this allows you to see when your trolling motor's on half throttle how much it's using, full throttle, spot locking, and it gives you just a bit more understanding of how to conserve power, how to use power, because basically every time you go out in the water it's potentially different, so just gives you all that information.
That's right, and if you're worried about, I've done a day's tournament fishing, do I need to recharge, and you look on there, it says you've still got 80% left, it's like, maybe I don't have to pull the boat out of the water tonight, or maybe I don't have to bother recharging it. So
yeah, it takes all the guesswork out of.
That's it. Now that works not only with your trolling motor batteries, your crank batteries can use the same technology, and that's the ones that we tend to like. I like overloading my cranking battery. You know that. I run my cranking battery. It runs my Mercury V8. It runs my live wells, my lights, my navigation lights, my Garmin up the front, and the Lowrance down the back. And that's a fair ask for a.
2 power poles.
Oh, that's right, 2 power poles. Oh, don't worry about the power poles. They only draw 30 or 40 amps when you're using it. But it all comes down to one little battery, which is 5 or 6 kilos. So it's a lot of ask for the battery. In my boat, I noticed that my alternator is so big, it knocks it back up solidly. But I can keep a really good eye on it with this app to see where I'm at and what my usage is for the day. So
another benefit for lithium too is because it maintains that same level of voltage, it's actually giving the same level of current to all those appliances all the time. So it actually only delivers what you need rather than just supply what it's got. And that helps with motor burnout and things like that as well. It's cleaner power.
Now, you were bragging before that you got a 12 volt battery here. You can put a 24 volt charger onto it and your battery management system handles that and it will take the charge and do it properly. Go on, turn it on, see if we can make an explosion.
Can I allow you to push the button on the...
I'll turn the power on your... So you've got some power there, all right? And that's going to crank up this charger, which is, it says on there, 24 volt charger. And then you can see on the screen on the app here, it's only pulling the, what's it pulling? 13.3 volts at about 5 amps,
Yep.
and it's putting that into the battery. So no explosions.
Good news.
Well, I do like blowing things up. So.
We can do that next episode. Yeah, so the battery management system is just saying to the charger, look, these are my parameters, this is how much I'm going to accept. The smart chargers have some intelligence in them as well to deliver that.
Yes.
However, any charger, whether it be a lead acid battery charger or anything, you could have it connected to it and it will do the same thing.
So green marine battery, I put my $20 super cheap 4 amp dumbass charger on there.
Yep.
Still don't blow anything up.
It'll go a bit slow, but it'll charge.
Now, hypothetically, say someone left their bung of their boat out at Foster and had to swim in, and by the time they got back, their cranky battery was nearly underwater. No dramas?
You tell me.
No, there was no dramas, actually. I was a bit worried about that, but once we got rid of all the water and gave her a hose down, it seemed like I've got a waterproof circuit breaker on it. It seemed like everything was fine. So
you could drop any of these batteries into the water. All that would happen if they sort of short circuit, the BMS would just shut down until
you could clean it all up again. So yeah, I've already tested that for you guys. You don't have to do it. You can leave your bungs in and do it all the way it's supposed to be. Let's move along a little bit to cabling. I'm going to shut down the screen recording on this now because we've had a look at the BMS stuff. So let's stop recording there. A lot of us have locally made or imported boats which have varying degrees of quality cabling in there. So no use having awesome power, awesome sounder units or whatever the accessories are, and then having rubbish cabling in between. What have you been finding when you've been talking to various boat owners and doing the measurements?
Well, it's been pretty good actually. What we've come across is it's not unique to have bad cabling in your boat. A lot of boats...
Doesn't matter what brand it is.
Doesn't matter what brand it is.
Yep.
A lot of boats are primarily set up for 12 volt cabling and not set up to run 24, 36 high amperage trolling motors and big screens and monitors and processors. So we're at that stage now where it's probably time to revisit your boat, what your power needs are, and making sure that you protect your equipment and your boat, but secondly, get the best out of your equipment as well. We've noticed the Garmin sounders, a difference in image quality and processing speed from 12 volt to 24 volt. It's noticeably faster.
And let me put that into perspective. The guys that use the Garmin LiveScope, the Garmin specifications on the sounder say you can use between 10 and 30 volts on those screens and on those whole LiveScope systems. So you're saying if you want to run it off your high capacity trolling motor battery instead of your crank battery and shift that load across, no worries at all, and it's helped by that good cabling if you put some good cabling in.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, two things about cabling. One, if you don't use the right size and quality cabling, it's going to get very, very hot. So hot that potentially can start fires or do some damage to things. You know, regardless if you've got a circuit breaker, it can still damage past the circuit breaker. Secondly, the voltage drop will reduce the capacity of your batteries. So we're getting reports now that by putting best cabling, you're getting an extra 20% out of a battery, which is a substantial loss.
Give us, you got some cables over here, and I'm just showing you, this is what's set up to run a 24 or 36 volt trolling motor, these cables. Like this is the width and the amount, like these weigh, this is about 3 kilos of cables here for just one of the 2 cables to run your trolling motor. So if you think you're going to get away running your old, your old extension cord rejiggered, it's not going to do it, and it's probably going to catch something on fire in your boat, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean this particular cable's, I think it's about 10 metres long or something or other. It's tin cable, tin connections, double insulated with UV braid on top. We're starting to think about maybe some pre-made cable lengths for people that can, if they want to rewire their boats themselves. Because not everybody has crimpers and heat shrink machines and everything you need to do the job properly. So,
that's right.
Yeah, we're just starting to develop this a bit better now, but we'll get some more information further down the track.
So for people that, for instance, have gone the lithium path, they've got rid of the lead acid and they've got lithium in, and they want to maximise the advantage of the lithium, this is your next port of call in your boat.
Absolutely. Wiring it up correctly from the battery terminal to the device, and that may mean thicker cable, that may mean better connections, that may mean switchboards or circuit boards. a range of different things. But yeah, don't be too depressed if your cable isn't up to standard.
Yeah.
You're like everybody
You're
else.
not Robinson Crusoe.
No, absolutely not.
And I think that's the next project in my boat is to get my Garmin's running off that 24 volt. So it's going to be an interesting project. We're going to come back to you with how that happens down the track. We don't exactly know how and when it's going to happen, but we'll find a window. And I really want to run 2 Garmin live scopes on the front of my boat, and I'm going to need that 24 volt power then, because a little 12 volter is just not going to handle it.
No, it certainly isn't. I mean, and that's the thing too. I think going forward, all the sounders and live scopes and all that sort of equipment is only going to become more powerful, faster processing, which is going to mean more power. That's reality of it.
Well, that's awesome. That's another interesting snapshot of where lithium's coming to. We haven't even talked about things like this green marine power your whole house unit. But give us a rundown on what this is, because I can foresee this running an ABT tournament down the track.
Well, this is we call it a renewable energy power station. So it's like a genset, but it doesn't have petrol. Or
it looks
diesel.
like a genset.
It looks like a genset. It can charge from 800 watts of solar, as well as about 400 to 600 watts of wind turbine. You can charge it from your car. You can charge it from another generator. You can charge it from mains. So it's got 5 or 6 different inputs, which gives it a lot more flexibility than just having fuel as your only source of energy. We designed these for the refugee camps, and we've got 5 of these going over to Lebanon this year for a Palestinian refugee camp to run their entire shelter, family shelter, and that'll run their fridges, TVs, lights, charge phones, run fans, all that sort of other stuff.
Wow, it's an interesting looking unit, and that would be a solid BMS in that thing to control all of the different inputs and outputs.
That's got a 2 kilowatt output. So I mean, there's a lot of small little generators on the market like this, but you'll find they've only got 500 watts or 300 watts output. So they're good at running lights, maybe charging a portable fridge and phones and all that sort of thing. But you won't run a toaster, coffee machine, washing machine, all those sort of bigger things that hair dryers, for example, that people are sort of requiring now when they go off camping and things like that.
Off grid, they just take the grid with them nowadays, don't they?
Well, the next level up is what we're doing in Lebanon too, is a dual axle trailer, which will run the whole blood bank off grid, because in Lebanon they have power cuts every 4 hours every day. And that's basically tow behind a car, solar panels come out, mast goes up for the wind turbine, and it'll have 15 kilowatts of power coming out of it. So.
Well, there you go. I know that a lot of people watching this show and watching this segment want to have a chat about lithium batteries. Steve is the man. Do we want to give out what's the best way to get in contact with you? Give you a call or an email, or what is it?
Anything. Get on our website, Green Marine Lithium. Our contact details are there. My phone number's there as well if you want to talk. Happy to talk to anyone pretty much any time. A lot of people have taken that advantage.
Well, why not? You know your stuff, and you do a lot of work with guys like Moddy, and you're always down here tinkering in the boat to see what I've broken and see how we can make it better.
Great,
awesome. So make sure you sing out to Steve, sing out to the guys at Green Marine. They're an ABT sponsor. They do good deals for ABT anglers, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, we've talked about him before in the last month for ABT. He is the champion of the Anzac Day weekend Clarence River Bass event. His name's Chris Banks. We used to see him kicking around the tournaments in a little cross country, but he has upgraded his rig. Let's let Chris show us his boat powered by Mercury.
Hey guys, Chris Banks here from Coffs Harbour. So we're just going to do a bit of a run through on the boat. and sort of the gear I'm using and what I'm running. So we'll start off. I'm running a Nitro Z6 boat that I've had for just over a year now. Previously I ran a couple of different boats. I had a cross country for about 2 years prior to that, and other than that I've had tinnies most of the time. So stepping up into a bass boat, it's a budget bass boat. It's not top of the line or anything. It is bottom end, but what a step! Huge difference going from a cross country fiberglass open boat to a bass boat. So had a 40 horsepower motor on that. Yeah, a bit of a step up jumping into one of these. So the last 12 months of fishing's been fantastic, and really loved it with the boat. So yeah, so Nitro Z6, we're running a Mercury Optimax 115 horsepower, which I'm looking to upgrade that sort of towards the end of the year, just to get a little bit more bottom end out of it. Would be good. Yeah, so good boat, runs well, really good rough water and stuff, really good as well. And I do take it offshore too, so chase mackerel and snapper and stuff, throwing plastics and running live baits, stick baits, that sort of thing. So yeah, really enjoying it. On the front of the boat, electric wise, we're running the Garmin Force trolling motor. Had a couple others prior to this. Had this about 12 months now. Fantastic unit, very accurate, quiet, incredibly quiet. Comes with a foot pedal and a remote as well. So the foot pedal, as you can see just inside there, it's all recessed into the boat. Sits down in there nicely. Just got a strap over there because I don't always have it plugged in, so just so she doesn't fly out. But the Garmin Force motor has just been a game changer for trolling, moving around while you're fishing. Awesome in the wind. The spot lock on them is fantastic. So yeah, something that I have thoroughly enjoyed. Power wise, so in the back of the boat, just running a standard lead acid battery for the crank battery. That's standalone, nothing else attached to it. Then on the other side here, we're running an Invicta 12 volt 130 amp hour. That currently runs all the electrics in the boat, plus my 2 sounders and the bilges. So a normal day on the water, normally out of the 12 volt battery, it sort of drops down to 60 odd % with the bilges running all day. So really good power. Never had dramas with the crank battery. It's continually charging, obviously. So yeah, that's pretty handy. Up in the front of the boat, it's right up under the hatch, so I can't show you, but running the Garmin, the Force trolling motor plus the live scope system that I've actually got on it as well, is a 24 volt 150 amp hour battery that Invicta put together for me. So I can normally get, well, I just did 3 days at Copeton on the water, fishing mornings and nights, fair bit of wind and stuff as well. Come away at the end of the weekend, I still had 70 odd % left in the battery. So the Invicta batteries, they're sensational. Really good gear. They last, you know what percentage you're at the whole time, so it sort of just takes that one thing you don't have to think about while you're out on the water. We'll start in the back of the boat from the hatches. So just on this side, all I run in here, just all my warm weather gear, obviously Copeton, cold, lots of warm weather gear in there that we've had in there, but normally for a bass comp, normally just got a raincoat. I use raincoats a lot, so that's usually wet weather gear and stuff in there. Also batteries for GoPros and cables and mounts and that sort of stuff all sit in there as well. On the other side, normally I use this for my non-boater. The only thing it holds in it normally is just an anchor and a rope. But over the weekend I just had all my light gear, all my bass gear that I was going to potentially throw for yellers and stuff, but didn't really do anything. But enough space there that I can sort of keep all my bass gear in there, all the light gear, jig heads, plastics, extra plastics, all that sort of thing. So then up in the middle here, we've got the live well, so dual live well, good size. I think they're about 120 odd litres. Pump in, pump out feature, really good. Yeah, I can run that all day with those batteries, as I said, and I only use sort of not even 50% of the battery, so yeah, pretty good stuff. Something I did put on the boat when I got it was a hot foot. Had the hand throttle for the motor, and yeah, once I put the hot foot on, it's just a pleasure to drive. Makes a big difference. Alright, rod locker. So through with the rod locker. Right, that's just all my cod gear in there at the moment, but normally full of just bass, bait casters, spin reels, that sort of thing. Plenty of space in these. That's the beauty of the bass boats. Centre hatch, so I just keep most of my tackle that's on hand the whole time during the day and stuff. Also keep the AccuCull recording for just for your tags. So got all the different tags. So the poke through tags plus the clip-on tags. Got both of them there, so definitely use everything out of there. And the 24 volt batteries up inside the hatch, up underneath there. Over on this side, so just all safety gear, bucket, rope. So yeah, a couple of life jackets and stuff up under the front there. The net. So the pool noodles. So they're my cheap and nasties, but they work really well, just for tying up on jetties and stuff wherever you pull up to. Just hooks on the side onto the bollard there. Protects the side of the boat, just in rough water and stuff when other boats and that pass. So not bad. The last two compartments, I believe this is supposed to be a bin, but that's just my little bits and pieces. Yeah, scissors, pliers, goggles for running, buffs, gloves, that sort of thing. And then just the esky. So frozen bottles generally is all I know. I throw a frozen bottle in there at the start of a weekend. Normally still cold by the end of the weekend, so they're pretty good. Yeah, so on the sounder side of things, so a 7412 in the Garmin, and on the front running a 952. Both of them are networked. Black box and everything's all under the side hatch in here, so that's good. Yeah, that's pretty well about it. Running the Fusion stereo up in the front. I've got a subwoofer that also plugs in the boat for when we're playing over summer and stuff, and have a bit of music in that playing. But yeah, and the stickers on the carpet. So McKnight Signs out at Tamworth do them. Fantastic job. I know Keegan's been giving me grief, telling me the amount of water I see, they're going to keep coming off. But yet they're stuck. They're not coming off anywhere at all. You can see all the edges, they're really good. So these get walked on the whole time I'm fishing and stuff, obviously, and they're hardy. So they've been on almost 12 months now. They haven't lifted at all. So really good. And then I've got a couple in the back as well. The Invicta ones there. No tackle, Invicta. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty well it. We spend enough money running around the country and fishing in different places and stuff. So for guys that sort of want to get into this and do it, I mean, 2 years ago I was doing it in the cross country, but it wasn't that much of a jump up to come into a nitro. So really loving the boat. Wouldn't change it in any way other than put a slightly bigger motor on it, give me a bit more punch. That's all. So other than that, really happy with it. And yeah, hope you've all enjoyed it. And more than happy. Anyone on Facebook wants to send me through any messages and stuff, that's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed the tour of Chris Banks's Mercury-powered nitro boat there. A couple of things I noticed in that segment. How good is it? He's got the big ABT check sitting there in the background with the Bassman Spinnerbaits logo on it. The Grafton Clarence River round of the 13 Fishing Bass Pro Series. Good on you, Banksy. It's good to see you having pride of place there amongst all of those deer. And good on the people on the feedback. No, someone wanted to know what the mask was for. It's for when you're going real fast in rainy weather, so it's not like someone throwing gravel in your face the whole time. That's what that's for. And but anyway, thank you very much for showing us your boat, Chris Banks. Anyone else that's got a boat they want to show us, hey, get in touch with us. The Show Us Your Boat segment open to anyone that wants to show us their Mercury-powered ABT tournament fishing boat. We can do that. Next up, we have, after a word from our sponsor, we have the crew from Rapala, and we have flicked Timmy Morgan, and we've got the real workers in. So let's go to an ad and come back with Matt Osley and Aussie Seth. We'll find out all about that soon.
Seeing the fish, their position, and how they respond in real time. That's game changing.
Interesting segment we've got now for ABT Live. I have got rid of the big round man, Timmy Morgan. He runs Rapala in Australia and he is out. We are tired of seeing him on this live show. The only person we're more tired of seeing him is me. But someone's got to host it, and I've got some of his capable staffers here. I've got Mitch Petty, who the ABT guys will know from being, bit of a chant from the back of the boat. And he's also in development, the Aussie Seth Fighter. Check out the mo, check out the hair. Give us a llama. There you
Llamas.
go. You can do the llamas. But someone who you may not know, Matt Osley. If you're a Brisbane tackle junkie, you would know him. Your history is Charlton's.
Yep, been in the industry for a while.
Bit of jackal in the past.
Yeah, a bit of repping and stuff for them.
And now you are Rapala's marketing guy. And I think one of the things I want to talk about tonight is the fact that we talk about Rapala Australia. It's not just Rapala. Tell us the big four that you guys do.
So Rapala, obviously, it's just a bit of an umbrella name. So we kind of cover 13 fishing, Storm, obviously VMC is another major partner in Rapala. So every single Rapala that comes out, every single Storm lure that comes out, everything is fitted with quality VMC terminals. So we haven't skimped at all on any terminals. They're all quality VMC.
Yep.
And then obviously Rapala lures is our big one.
And let's not forget Costa, who were the naming sponsor for our Brim series for 3 years. You still do them?
Yeah, definitely. So you're still running with Costa's, probably one of the leading brands of sunglasses for any angler on the water.
Yep.
One of the best lenses out there. So.
And I remember Costa, when we used to survey the people in the tournaments, we used to ask what sunnies do they use. At the start, Costa was like 2 or 3%.
Mm-hmm.
By the end, it got up to 50 to 55%.
And we're still seeing that in the sales.
Yep.
So
it's awesome.
The tournament anglers love the Costas. Really kind of just like getting involved in that. They've got a bit of a kind of input in the way Costas has travelled too. So we're getting new frames that are more wraparound styles and just more designed by the tournament anglers.
Now, there's some big international brands there. You know, VMC, they're a French brand that are global.
Correct.
You know, 13 Fishing, developed in America, but, going global, and Rapala own a lot of 13 Fishing now.
Yep.
And Rapala, of course, the world's oldest, commercial lure brand.
Yep.
But we don't just get, punted the leftovers from the rest of the world.
Correct, yep.
Tell everyone the story about how you guys and, Mitch, and you both get an input as to developing product which is good for Australia. Give us a bit of an example.
Rapala nowadays is it's kind of looking out of Europe for lure options. So Australia, Southeast Asia, we're kind of a bit of a key player in those developing new lures for the market. And some of our lures then go back to Rapala Europe and they go, oh, well, this would be really good for perch or pike.
Yep.
So our idea is sort of we go back and forth.
It's going the other way now.
Yeah, it's going the other way. So like our Jack Deep one, we really push for that brim crankbait. So little fat jacks and stuff like that. We just needed that in the Australian market, and we got it. And then it turned out to be a really, really good perch lure.
Yep.
So over in Europe, they're using it for your stored European perch or trout.
Yep.
Whereas over here, it's been massive on the bass and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
So.
That's awesome. And to the point, we run the 13 Fishing Bass Pro Series this year, which we all like going to and fishing. And those, we have the standard 13 reels that are available all over the world, but the rods that are coming, and when are they coming, and how much input do you have into those?
The rods, we've just had a big input. So we had all the samples come in about a week, 2 weeks ago, and we all sat down, we went through them all. A lot of them are designed for the American market. So the guides are quite small because they run the straight through fluorocarbon a lot. So we've had to change a lot of the guides. We had to change some of the blank actions. Some of them weren't good for us, some of them were good for us. We had to go back and bounce back and forth, but now we've kind of keyed it down to a guide, like a rod that's a range that'll suit Australian conditions for the Australian anglers. So obviously we like to run our braids. We like to run big, heavy leaders.
Yep. You ever seen a barra, mate? That's why.
Which is been reflected now in the rods. So we've got bigger guides on them, so the guys can tie those big all bright knots up north and stuff like that, and not have a worry that it's going to hit the first guy and rip it off. Yep. So, they've all been redone for us, and they should be, don't hold me to that, but hopefully we'll see them by the end of the year.
Okay, so hopefully 13 rods under the Christmas tree for us this year.
Yeah, give or take. But yeah, look, that's just a hopeful. But look, at this stage, we're going to wait for our samples now of all the Australian guides on it, and if they're all go ahead, then mate, we'll start pumping them out.
That's awesome. Now, Mr. Seth, sorry, Mitch. I've seen you fish the 13 stuff a lot now. You get to you fish as a non-boater in a lot of the events that we see. I suppose my history with 13 is I've got to sample one of these back when Nomad used to do it. May have been 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
And one of them came across, and I haven't been able to kill it. It was one of the old, I think the C's. They were the original, the $200 ones, and I still haven't killed it. 100 threadies and dewies onwards, still going fine. What's your experience been with these reels for throwing smaller baits? I was throwing probably 1 ounce baits on it. You'd fish smaller baits a lot for bass. How have they been going for you in your tournaments?
Yeah, no, they've been really good. So I've been fishing like a lot of deep sort of schools and bass in Somerset and Wivenhoe predominantly. So I've been using like 1/2 ounce, 5/8 weights. Yep. They've been working really, really well, especially getting them tuned in really well. The casting on them is phenomenal. From a person who come from spin out on open, now starting to go with bait casters, really impressed with how just the castability on them.
And have you got yourself to the point where you're using the SLZ to its full potential? Like, you're throwing into the wind, you're flipping that over, or are you still having to think about when to do that? Is it a natural movement for you? Flick, whoosh, throw it.
It's probably it's slowly getting there, like just getting used to it. But yeah, definitely in the wind, especially like when there's like a westerly sort of blowing through and you're throwing crankbaits and stuff. That's helped a lot. I'm sort of starting to get used to it. Of that, having the ability so quickly to be able to like change it and just to see it in action, how that lure can fly is it's really good.
One of the developments I think's been happening in the bass side of things is the acceptance of Aussies throwing big crankbaits. Probably 5 or 6 years ago you wouldn't see many, and then the guys started doing their long lining, which is where they put them in the water, electric 200 metres away, but now they're learning to use long rods, throw them a long way, and they're a real tool in the arsenal. What in your range, and I know you've got some of them here, but what in your range have you seen as being the most effective lure that you guys sell for that deep crankbaiting?
Look, for like the predominant, like the guys using the DTs, so these ones here, which is your dive 2s.
Yep.
So
here's a box you brought in earlier. I saw something there that might be.
Here's our box. One thing that we've noticed with your DTs, it's very easy. Just DT stands for dives 2. So if you're fishing a big flat out there and it's 16 foot, and the trolls are smashing them, and you're wondering why you're not getting them, just have a look and go, hey, it's 16 foot, so I'll just get a DT 16 out.
Yep.
And it's going to obviously dive to 16 feet.
Now, is that on mono or fluorocarbon or braid and leader?
So
what do we have to do?
I found it if you're just doing a normal steady cast and wind, like with braid, it'll still get to that 16 feet.
Yep.
If you're going to be throwing it, long lining it, you might get a little bit more, and you'll start actually bumping the bottom. And I know Mitch was doing that the other day. He was cranking it down. Once it started hitting the bottom and really stirring up the sediment, that's when you get
the bass to get on there.
Yeah, definitely triggered that bite once it was on the bottom, dredge and bottom.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good combination. I think the long casting 13 reels and those depth specific crankbaits are a real formula for for working it out, because you can see them on your sounder. If the bass are all hanging at 15 foot, 20 foot, 10 foot, whatever, you need to take note of that.
Oh, absolutely. And particularly not long ago I was at Mulgra Dam before that inflow of rain. And I noticed they were sitting in around that sort of 15-foot mark, and they were just in a line of 15 foot through the DT16. I knew it was going to get down through them, and it was, literally within like a couple of casts, it was like consistently starting to come through. Being able to actually go into that line of bass and stay in there was the biggest thing, which was good.
That's it. And those DTs, they do keep their depth right to the end of the retrieve, don't they?
And they go down quick too. They go down real fast, especially on the DT20, having that little metal in the bib there. Just there, they just skyrocket down, and then they just sort of work their way in that right depth. It's really good.
Now, personal question. I know Seth Fider is a Rapala sponsored angler over there. He loves throwing the DTs.
Yep.
Do you watch him and get his style?
Most definitely. Yeah, no, I watch a lot of the guys over in the States, because that's what they predominantly use, is those type of crankbaits and stuff. So it's good to sort of understand what they're sort of using, not only what they're using, but how they're using it, what they're looking for, and trying to find those situations to bring back to Australia and be able to target our Australian bass. Yeah, most definitely.
Now, when I'm watching the guys fish over there, it's a habit I picked up over there, throwing those big deep crankbaits. I'm always burning it and then just a little stop occasionally. Yep. Does that work for the bass?
Most definitely. Yep. Either stop, go, or even doing a couple of drags as well too, like dragging and then pausing it. Yep. And then just on the pause, I'll just come up and behind it and smash it. But yeah, no, definitely mixing it up and just giving something a bit different to sort of like. I suppose just something that bit different that they're not sure of, and that's what makes them attack.
If you follow on a fast lure, you stop it, just runs into their mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what happens. I'm telling you. Hey, we have the VMC round of the 13 Fishing Bass Pro Series on at Cania in a few weeks. Weather's starting to get a little bit cool now, and I always get excited at Cania about that jerkbait bite. When the water clears up, some of the algae dies in the water, and that water temp goes down. Personally, I reckon that any water between 14 and 18 degrees is awesome for jerkbaiting. What's your experience, and what Rapala jerkbait would you be using to do that?
Most definitely 100% with jerkbaiting, I'd be throwing the ripstop. Being able to rip that bait down and then letting it to stop in its tracks, having those bass come up, and not instead of it sort of jerking it and then the lure sort of slowly drifting away and they're sort of coming behind it, but having that ripstop and then having that boot tail on the back of it, being able to jerk it and then for it to just stop in their face. They literally nearly, like you said, run into it, and it's like it's a trigger. They've just got to eat it. So that'd be probably one of my picks for the weekend. Ripstops for sure.
I reckon there will be a lot of jerkbaits tied on for that Cania round. Now, with VMC being the naming sponsor, we do have a special treat for the guys that are coming up to fish that event. You're going to be able to get, I think, Timmy and Aussie Seth hooking your lures up for you, like doing an upgrade on your lure for you. Tell us about the types of trebles that you can offer these guys for their lure upgrade, and what will you be doing up at Cania?
Yep, so pretty much at briefing, myself and Tim will be, any lure that you guys are bringing up to the event, we're going to be swapping
Not a whole box, though.
Not a whole box, no. We'll have to scale it down to probably about one or two. Yeah, definitely not that. But yeah, like one lure, if you got like rusty trebles and stuff like that, we're going to be up there with myself and Tim, and we're going to be replacing, old rusty trebles with really good, sharp quality VMC hooks.
And I noticed that some of the dress trebles that you have as well, with the little tiny blades on there, have been going pretty good. Guys like Mick Horn have been starting to work out that little bit of extra flash is a good thing on there, and you'll have some of them on hand as well.
Most definitely, 100%. We'll be having those hybrid trebles as well too. So if you do want a particular lure with a hybrid treble, we can definitely organise something for you up on briefing.
I can let you know that from personal experience, having Timmy Morgan rig your tackle for you is great. Sit back there, let him do it. Someone else doing your work's great, but having the head of Rapala do it, that's even better. Get him doing it for you. And
definitely.
And I know if he's punting them to Aussie Seth, you're probably going to get a pretty good job himself. So it's an idea we've had for a while. It's good to see that this year in the 13 Fishing Series, it's the VMC event. That's the event we're going to roll out this theory. And hey, get to the briefing early. Get in while the guys have got all the good hooks, because come about, say, 7:30 and there's still lineups. I guarantee Timmy is off to have a few beers.
Most definitely. I could imagine. It'll be a late night, I reckon.
Well, let me tell you, though, I think we are running that briefing a little bit early. I think it's going to be a 5 o'clock briefing instead of a 6 o'clock briefing at Caney, just so we've got a bit of extra light, just so that Aussie Seth isn't up until midnight putting your new hooks on your lures for you. Look, I think it's great. The support we've had from the Rapala company over the years has been great. It's been the Costa Brim series. It's been the 13 Fishing Bass Pro series. I suppose you guys have a heritage in that tournament series. In this show, we have an interview with Carl, and I asked Carl, which pros would you like from America to come across to Australia to bring to do it? And one of them was, of course, Brandon, who's got an association with your brand. How excited do you think American Seth would be if he come across and caught himself a barra.
Oh, mate, it would just be something he's never witnessed before, I reckon. It'd be
It'd
awesome.
be llamas, it'd be Kongs.
Oh, it would be a boat to be on for sure. It'd be it'd be a great time, 100%.
Yeah, no, we look forward to that. When international travel comes up again, your sponsor. Yeah, let's just stop talking about Seth. Let's talk about Carl Jocenson as well.
Yeah,
who's running the Rapala baits now, and has always loved the DTs, but he's finding a special talent at the moment for finding discontinued lures to catch fish on, isn't he? He likes the ones you can't get anymore.
It's doing me a really good favour, that's all. It's hard, but yeah.
Look, from a marketing point of view, we have a lot of tournament anglers watch this show, and Rapala spends a lot in that tournament side of things. How important is that tournament side of things for helping develop your market in Australia?
It's massively important. So we listen to a lot of the tournament anglers, and if they've got little ideas and tips and stuff, we like to take that back to Rapala. Obviously, we portray it as our own idea because we're not going to give credit out to these.
Of course, that's how sponsorship works.
That's exactly how sponsorship. So, in colour ranges, hook upgrades, a lot of these kind of ideas that a tournament angler is going, that might work if this is weedless with the screw-in eyelet. Then that obviously that goes back. It can turn into an actual physical idea and then gets made, and if it works, it's great. We'd like to help them out.
I do like the process that you go through because I had a bit to do with when the Fat Jacks were coming out, and I remember Timmy would rock up on the boat and he goes, "This one's got one ball bearing, this has got two, this one, this is," and he had it all. And you'd have a whole range of lures, and you had to keep on fishing until you work out which one we were the most comfortable with and which one the fish were saying they wanted to eat. So it's not just pick a lure out of a catalogue and do it. It is a very iterative process, and that's why it takes a couple of years.
And that Fat Jack project was a perfect one because it's going to be marketed to the brim anglers. So what we did is we went to brim anglers who were going to buy it and said, "What do you guys want in a crankbait? Do you want a deep diver? Do you want a medium diver, shallow diver?" And we ended up coming with the perfect depth. Obviously, you had a big influence with the rattle, so you got the little 2 glass beads in there. So the whole process was actually kind of helped move forward quicker by going to the brim anglers. And obviously, sales are now showing that because they've been going off tap, and a lot of the tournament anglers are still now using the Fat Jacks and the comps. So.
And I think that's the ultimate test of a bait is if you tie it on and it catches you fish, people will buy more of it. So, so if you've done your job properly as a marketer, but he hasn't done his job as a product developer, you'll sell a whole heap at the start, and then you won't sell any more.
Whereas the Fat Jacks, and obviously being designed by Australia for heavy duty tackle and stuff on it, it is steadily going. So. It's been a very popular lure for us.
Happy days. Well, I hope you enjoyed meeting a couple of the behind-the-scenes guys from Rapala. They're a great sponsor of ABTs, and it's great to have them in the studio here tonight.
Taming the beast isn't easy, but the bigger your electronics, the more you have on the line. In conditions like this, you need the KVD Kong Extreme Electronics Mount. The only electronics mount designed and built to be rock solid. No movement, no matter how heavy your gear. A marine-grade mount for fresh or salt water that's monstrously strong. The KVD Kong Extreme Electronics Mount.
Well, there you go. There's a couple of faces behind the scenes at Rapala in Australia that get things done. Thanks again to Rapala. A great suite of products and great sponsors of ABT. Now, one quick reminder, we're about to draw the winners for our comps tonight. You can win the Tackle Titan lure holders, but everyone's here. They want to win the TX2 13 fishing bait cast reel, nearly $500 worth of reel there. Let us know what the ideal 13 rod design for you is going to be, because the 13 rod range is going to hit the decks hopefully here just before Christmas. So they're in the process at the moment of designing them, and hey, they might look at some of your ideas and put it on there, but someone for their comments is going to win this reel right here. Also, if you haven't done so, let us know where you're from. That'll maybe get you a set of Tackle Titan lure holders for your boat. Now, the next interviewee we have tonight is someone we've talked to many times in ABT Live. We love watching him on the Bassmaster Elite Series. I remember giving him his first prize check when he was 14 years old, and he spoke like this, and his name's Carl Jocenson. Let's have a word from our sponsor, and we'll talk to him then. So here he is. We've taken a while to get hold of him this year. You have had a busy calendar this year, Carl Jocenson, and us Aussies, we've all been following your roller coaster ride of a Bassmaster Elite Series this year. Glad you've taken the time this morning to have a bit of a chat to us and get all your Aussie fans up to speed with some of the backstory about what has been a crazy year starting at the Johns River, mate. It seems like years ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been a long season already, and it's been busy. You know, I don't know if I've had a single day off of driving, fishing, rigging, sponsors, in tournaments. You know, it's just been flat out since before the even year started. So I like it that way, but it's going to be good. The season's ending a little bit shorter. It's going to give us a longer off season, a bit more time to be able to get prepared for the following season and be able to have a bit of a break and stuff like that. But from December, or really from about November until end of probably August, it's basically hardly a week off, you know, but barely a day off. So this week right now, we just came from Gunnersville, just came from Nearly Henry to here, and I've got a week off, and this is the first week I've had like a full week to where unpack the boat, clean, service stuff, order stuff in, and have some sort of normalcy where I can really get square one. Everything else has been like one day and gone, and then, you know, driving or fishing. So it's been hectic, and it's been good. I enjoy it like that, and I'm like this close off having a phenomenal season, but it's just almost we're getting on a bit of a roll there, and then had a bit of a hiccup again, but it's been okay.
Tell us about now. We saw you turn up to the first event this year in your new boat. It's a Falcon, the brand. Give us a little bit of a rundown on how that rig's been performing.
Yeah, I've been absolutely loving it. You know, it's a much bigger boat than anything that I've had. It's the smoothest running boat that I've ever had. You know, a big one for me is like, if you're just a fisherman and you fish on the weekends, or you fish every now and again, or once a month, or it doesn't matter, you don't notice it as much. But for me, fishing the amount that I do, and I study a lot and look after my body, and want to do this forever, and I look at the guys that have been competing for a long time, and the guys that are in their 50s, some of them can hardly walk. Some of them have to retire. Their backs and their elbows and their bodies, like, it is brutal. It's a constant wear and tear on every part of your joint and back and stuff. And for me, my back and my body was hurting after all the time, you know, and I wanted a bigger, smoother ride, because they're huge lakes. It's never smooth. There's boat traffic. It's busy. And I drove in every single boat. I wanted to get in a boat that I just wanted to be in. You know, it wasn't something that they came to me or anything like that. And I got to drive in Brandon Coulter's Falcon, and I drove one time across Watts Bar, and I was like, this is the boat. And then I talked to him, and I talked to people that had dealt with Falcon. They said they're just the best company to deal with. You deal with its owner, you deal with the owner, and they're just great people. Smaller company that's building up, and the boat is just going to continually get better, and I was just really excited about it. So I just have been loving getting in it every day. All the little things, unique things that they've done. The rod lockers open, you know, vertically instead of sort of tipping your rods out over the side. Little things like that they've done that are unique, that I like. But it's still fast. I'm doing over 70 miles an hour. And then and it's still small enough where I can get through culverts. I can have my Minn Kota like just the prop in the water all the way up, and the boat is going to go through that shallow water. So it's been great, really fun to work with those guys too. And then they want my input on everything. So the boat's hopefully going to continually get better and better.
Well, that's awesome, mate. The first derby you went in was the Johns River, and that was down at Florida, which can be a bit of a pain in your side, and you managed to escape that with the 21st place, mate. And you did it sight fishing. I thought I'd never see Carl Jocenson on Bassmaster Live fishing for bedding fish. You look like like you're starting to learn what's going on. Just explain to the guys here the whole bedding deal and how different it is from everything we got.
Yeah, it's that has probably been one of the biggest struggles for me, is because mainly, like in Australia, like it's illegal to fish for any bedding fish. So like even when fish were bedding, we have like eeltail catfish bed, And we were allowed to catch them, and actually remind me of that. I used to do it when I was young. I'd see them on the beds and I'd pitch into them with really light line and fight them. And but like most of our species are kind of protected in that season. So for me, one, it felt weird. I was like, I've never done it in my whole career, and now it's a huge player and something that you have to be really good at. And then it was just a long time of understanding exactly how it worked. And literally after 10 years, this year it finally all clicked. And it even came down to Lake Fork, where I had an 11th place and just missed the 10 cut, and I caught every single one of them sight fishing. And it was just, it's just one of those things where you continually learn. All of a sudden, it just you get the understanding of it. And it's got to the point now, it got to at St. John's and Fork where if I saw one, I knew I was going to catch it. It didn't, where in the past I'd look at it, it would be 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm wasting time, and it's not locking on the bed or it's doing weird things, and I would leave. And now it's like when I see it, I'm like, I'm going to be able to figure this fish out, see what it's doing, and then be able to catch it. And that's kind of what happened. And the very first tournament of the year was in Florida, and I've often come out of there with a bad one. I think 45th was the best I had, which was last year. And so was sitting in third after day one. So I got that full day on live. It was really good, and then escaped Florida with a 21st. I was like, okay, this is going to be the year, But then it all come to a screaming halt after that. But that's how it rolls.
Well, tell us about that. That was at Pickwick, and run through. You said that the Pickwick pre-fish was off the charts, but the tournament, it kicked you right in the nuts. So give us the story about that, mate. Well, we want to hear. I remember the best story we've done on when it was lockdown live was you getting frustrated about something. You're allowed to let it out here, mate. You're all amongst friends.
Yeah. Well, it was actually Fort Loudon Tellico, the one that Gussie won. So the champ is actually in the shop right now. There he is. Hi, everybody. There's the Canadian champ. So stop rigging up for Gunnersville as well, and spending the week here right before in between the two events. But that was the next one was Fort Loudon, and what you've seen this year, what has happened is we've had just mass changing conditions every single event. So it's just gone from it's my worst nightmare. Like I'm getting better and better, and I understand these lakes, and I'm fishing them a lot, and I'm getting very good at figuring them out. But my worst nightmare is a last-minute mass change, and that's what we have had. We didn't have it at St. John's, had a good one. Didn't have it at Lake Fork, had a good event. And then all the others have been, as drastic changes as you can. And when that happens, it plays right into the hands of anyone that's had a really tough practice, because now you go out there with an open mind, you haven't got anything locked in, and it plays into the guys that really know the lake, that live there. Like we've been fishing Alabama and like these southern states where half these fields have lived here their whole life. They've grown up, their dads, their grandfathers. They've seen those conditions 20, 30 times over their year at that time of year. They know exactly what those fish are going to do. And so we got to Tellico, and it was muddy, dirty, freezing water. And then we got massive amount of rain. And it was really cool to see Gussie just do something totally different. He caught all those smallmouth out in the middle. And I work with Gussie. We work together, and we've both helped each other a bunch. And Gussie tried to help me a lot in that one, but I actually just made a bad decision. Instead of going there early when they were biting, I went to my largemouth stuff and then went over there, and you saw him, he caught him early. And that technique that Gussie was doing was something that he's done since a kid and learned in Canada on the smallmouth up there. He's a master at it. And when you see someone fishing and catching them and you're watching them on video or whatever, they make it look easy. But what he's doing is so technical and so refined. It's insane. Like, they're not showing even half the stuff, the little things that he's doing to make those fish bite. So it's not a matter of just getting in the area and catching them. There's so much. So I learned a lot from those things, but it's just little decisions. That's all it is. A lot of the time you're like, one little decision, if that event, if I went straight to there, I probably would have been up there in the top 10, with Gussie. Instead, I went one decision wrong, went to a largemouth spot early, and then your whole tournament takes a different turn. That's kind of how it's been. So we rolled from there. So I had one good one, one bad one, and what was up next? I don't think it was Pickwick. Yeah, number 3.
Water came up 7.
Yeah, so beautiful practice. I find these grass flats with stumps in them, and I'm on an unbelievable bite with a chatterbait, and I've got them so dialed, I'm like sick to get out there. And then it was like 7 to 10 inches of rain overnight, tornadoes ripping through the whole area. The lake came up 8 feet and just turned to pure mud. And then cancelled for 2 days. So now the last time I was on the lake is 3 days ago. And by the time you get there, and like, I haven't fished Pickwick a bunch. So now I'm driving out onto a lake that does not look anything like anything I've ever seen. Like, they're just, these things are just the stuff that you got to continually go through and deal with. And that resulted in another bad one. And it, like, there was these areas that had tons of fish in them, and I knew like 30 to 40 boats were going to be in these certain areas, but I'd keyed in with my 360, these specific casts, and I was thinking maybe they're still there. If they're not there, they're going to be pushed to the bank. And when I ran there on day one, no one went there. Everyone went to like 2 opposite ends of the lake. They knew already, like, when the lake fills up here, they go to the dam, and then the water's going to slow and fill down on the lower end, and it's not going to be as affected. And so instead of them trying to figure it out like I am, I'm like, okay, now where have these fish gone? What am I going to do? They're running straight to where they know what is going to happen at that time of year. So like that's the sort of quality of angler that you're going up against. They're not checking to see if their fish are still there. They're just changing everything straight up and running to where they know they're gonna do well. So
if you think you're good at bass fishing, then you come out and fish with these guys for a bit.
And we're like, oh, it looks a lot better on TV. I thought I was good.
Watch the TV show and it looks like the easiest place like on the planet to catch bass.
Yeah.
Like, I zeroed the first day at Pickwick. First 10 years I've been doing this, first zero I've ever had.
Yeah, and you led the like years before. Like Gussie's done really well on Pickwick, and then just bang, zero. Like can't catch a bass. And
I was like, Carl was catching them so good. I was just confident, like listening to what he,
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm gonna catch them. I'm gonna put a chatterbait on and a spinnerbait and go, just.
Yeah.
But.
It's
these guys are animals.
Yeah, like someone was telling me the other day, like they just when they went from the opens to the elites, I think Cliff Pace or someone said you went from like preschool to honors in the highest Harvard. You know what I mean? Like you went from the lowest almost of low to the peak performance, and you just get absolutely just annihilated. It's unbelievable. If you, in every single tournament, if you're not coming in at the day just sick with just knowing like that was an incredible day, you will not be in the 50 cut. Like if you're like, that was decent, you're in 70th every time. Like you were like, man, I caught him pretty good. It's like 70th. Like everyone said like 6 to 7 pounds a day would get a check at Nearly, and like 12 to 14 would win. And it was like 7-8 bags over 15 on day one, 10 pounds is in 50th. You've got to catch 20. So I zeroed. So I've got to catch a bag 4 pounds bigger than the leading bag just to even get paid. It'll humble you real quick. They aren't playing here. You've got to go into every one of these just fired up.
Well, let's talk. Let's get rid of the negatives. Let's talk about Fork. We're all itching for you to get into the top 10 there.
Yeah.
Tell us what went on. Like you said, all of the fish were. Was that a bet? That was the bedfish tournament as well for you at Fork.
Yeah. that they were sort of offshore, but that was one where it was insane. Like they were on beds and they were doing a little bit of everything. But on day 3, the sun came out for the first time. And I went into this pocket that I'd been in, and the sun had been out for barely an hour, and I slid up there, and I could have caught over 30 pounds without the boat moving. There was just giants on beds, the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. And then I got talked to a couple guys, and they're like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. But then the next day, it got windy and cloudy and a little bit cool the day of the tournament, and it made it really tough. And I was like very close to bailing on the whole thing, but I put my head down and just slowed way down and just found some of the bigger males that were left and got them to bite. And this was the thing where I started to figure out, like, I could just see something that wasn't right, and I would know it was a bed, and I would fish for it, and then I would see a fish move, and I was able to move and adjust the boat to the right angles till I could get a bearing on them. And then I had like an array of techniques that I could continue to work that fish with until I would see this slightest little reaction. And then once I seen that little reaction, I was like, I'm going to get it to bite. And then I would continue to do that until I'd catch them. And for me, the one thing was like when they would move away from the bed when you would cast into there, and then they would come back at a certain angle. And in the end, this is how I caught majority of them. I would throw my bait up there, and I would leave it sit on the back side of the bed, and I'd wait to see which angle the fish would come in on that bed on each time. And so I'd position the boat to where that fish is going to come in on that angle, and I'd put my bait on the far side of the bed. And when that fish would move up on that angle, I would literally hit the bottom of my butt as hard as I could, just like bang, and that bait would just jump and they would react. Like it was so cool to see. Like from there, they wouldn't come within 6 feet. And like if anything moved, they would just shoot off. To see them just like flare their gills and eat it, it's one of the coolest things. And there's mixed emotions on bed fishing and tournament fishing. For that one, we catch, weighed, and released. So you would catch that fish, weigh it, and release it. And through all the science and all the studies and everything that they do over here, they show basically zero effect on a lake from people fishing for beds. It's not like our Murray cod and things like that are very finicky and have a not as a stable population. Here, the percentage of beds that you even see with your own eyes is very, very tiny. It's not a big percentage of fish. And these fish are crazy. They get caught and they go straight back and they guard it, and then they're way smarter for it, and then they're like impossible to catch. And so they'll guard that bed then and be almost impossible to catch. So they wise up and they go back and guard the eggs. So the lake doesn't have an effect from catching spawning fish, which is cool.
Now, clarify something for me. I remember fishing a tournament at Clear Lake 15 years ago where I caught a 4-pounder off a bed and I hooked him on the outside of the face, so I had to let him go because you have to hook him inside the mouth with the state regulations. Yep. I put him back on the bed and I caught that fish again like 10 minutes later. Can you catch a 9-pounder off a bed, put it back, and then catch it again because you're weighing and releasing?
You can catch it the next day if it stayed there. So you can only fish for the one bed fish once per day. And so that was, and I'm sure, and fish did get caught like days in consecutive, days, but it showed how quickly they moved in and out. But if you caught that fish, you had a marshal in the boat and you weren't allowed to go back and target that fish. And so on day 3, just the timing of things, I ran into this creek and there was 2 guys that were fishing in there, and I knew they knew about this 5-pounder that I'd caught the day before. And they were going, one of them was working up into it, and another elite angler was idling in there, and I idled beside him, and so he knew I was going in there, so he went to a different fish, and the other elite angler thought I was going to another fish, so he fired his engine up and crossed the creek. And so I went and started where he did and worked my way around that bank to get to this 5-pounder. And halfway between me and that 5, the 9.5 swam out from this a really deep bed. I was like dirty because we'd got a bunch of rain, and it was like 5 feet deep, and I just caught the slightest coloration of this dark fish swimming off, and I was like, that's a big one. But I thought it was about a 6-pounder, and I'm like, that's going to be a good way to start the day off. And I swung the boat around, I got set up, and I just never took my eyes off this slightly lighter area. And about every 5 minutes, I'd just see this little shadow cross through it, and I was like, she's there. And I worked on her, and then all of a sudden she pulled up there and stayed there. And then I saw her like roll on her side and saw this big white belly, and she picked it up and set the hook, and it wasn't a 6-pounder, it was a 9.5.
They're the best sort of surprises, aren't they? Let's have a little bit of a chat about your opens. You haven't fished many opens this year, but the last one you fished, I think it was at Pickwick, and you flipped that result around. It shows you the difference between that rain coming through and having stable conditions. Take us through that event, because some of the footage we saw on your socials looked great with that shad spawn going on.
Yeah, that was really cool. And that, and I always say, that's what it's all about, is going to an event and having a bad one, make sure you take something away from it. And when I have a bad one, I just can't wait to get back there or compete again the next week. So you can get that, you can get your redemption back. And so I was excited for the Opens. Smith, we've had so much rain over here this year. Like, all the lakes have just been overflowing like crazy. So Smith Lake got cancelled, and then the Smith Lake Open, so it's postponed till later on in the year. And so the way our schedule worked, it was very hard. I like to fish a bunch of opens. It keeps me fishing, keeps me competing. And so this year, the only really way to fish them was to do the Centrals. And so I jumped in the Centrals. And so Pickwick was directly after Fork. And we packed up Fork straight after I just missed the cut, came 11th. And we drove like 10 hours, set up camp. And the next morning I was practicing. And yeah, I found one area off the end of this marina, and that what happens over here, shad's just like a bony brim. It's almost identical, but they spawn and at this time of year, and they get up on anything hard, and they go crazy. Like, it's almost like you can hear it sometimes. They'll be just all on the surface going crazy, and the bass just feed. But when it's like that, you have that little 1 hour window when them bass are going to be biting. And then when the shad spawn stops, those bass just stop, and it makes it really hard to catch them after that. So I found that area, and I thought there was 225 anglers in that open, and I was boat 125 or something. I'm like, I'm never going to get to that marina. Well, I got there and no one found it, no one fished it. And I thought I was going to actually catch them all the way along the front of the marina and just pick up one here, one there. But when I got there, my first cast, I caught a 4-pounder, and I was going to start to work, and I was like, I better make one more cast. And I caught him every single cast for about 15 minutes until I had 17-something pounds. And basically the same thing happened on day 2, but I had to work a little bit harder, and I moved my way along that marina and continued to upgrade to another 17-pound bag. So just missed the cut at Sabine, which was a tough one, but at least it wasn't bad. It was a midfield, and then I moved up. Got to fish with the Wide to Fish boys and caught that 10.5-pound bass in Texas with all that on. Following week, 11th on Lake Fork with big bass of the day, then a 12th at Pickwick, 2 solid days. So like, I got that momentum rolling, and it's such a good feeling, because like you said, the sport's just so up and down that gets frustrating sometimes. You're like, can we just have like a month where you just feel good for a month, not like on stop? It's brutal, and a lot of people, we'll show it as years go by, and not a lot of people understand. But like, it's not a matter of you'll get them next time. This sport, this is very cutthroat. Where you can get relegated out of the elites. You lose $7,500, $8,000 if you don't get a check. Like, we have mass entry fees, 10 grand is continually coming out of your account. I don't care how rich you are, if you got money, that's a lot of money. And for us, we are grinding and trying to get through that. And when you miss check after check, things get really quick. And I've been through the trenches with that, and I just never want to go back. And that's why you see the drive and everything that I have is because I never want to go back to that sick feeling of how it can be. When I made it in 15, 16, like I didn't know what I was in for, and I found out real quick that this is a different thing that I was imagining. So we've gotten to a position, but you have to continually catch them and have to continually work really hard to stay well.
Tell us about the rest of your season. You're about 2/3 of the way through the elites at the moment. So what are your next stops, and how do you feel about them? Like, I'm hoping you have a rubbish practice, because dead set, your good practices end up in bombs. So let's just hope you just have an average practice.
What happens with a good practice? Like, I like having a good practice because you feel good going into the event, and you feel like you've found something, and it gives you confidence, and I'm like ready to go. So it feels great. But what tends to happen is you're far less likely to fish a new bank, a new area, a new spot, a new lure. Like during that event, you're going to run all of those spots where you got bit, and then that can waste a lot of time. When you have a bad practice, it feels terrible. You go into the first day of the tournament, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. I had a bad practice. But then you're like, oh, the wind blew on this side. I'm going to go over there, and like, that looks good. I'm going to hit that. And then you jump around, and you're way more likely to be more versatile and run into the fish during those conditions at that very time, not be stuck on what happened over 3 days. But often a good practice can lead into a win. Like 10 Killer had a good practice, stable conditions, knew how to catch them, dialed them in, and then continued to do that over 4 days. So like it's not always the case, but you need to have a good mix of the two. You need to have that good practice, but be willing to bail very quickly on anything that you've figured out and try and be a bit more versatile. So we had a bad one at Nearly Henry just gone, but I didn't catch a bass on day one, and that really hurt because I've had my 2 bad ones. I knew I couldn't have another bad one. Had a phenomenal practice, and then had 8 inches of rain, and the lake filled up and everything changed. And I had the bites. I adjusted. I lost them. Next day had 10.5 pounds, saved a few points, but we really didn't need that one. So trying to put it behind me, have put it behind me, and we're back in the shop right now here in Tennessee, and we've got 1 week here, and that's why Gussie's and his wife Shelby are here, just hanging for the week. We're going to fish, work on tackle, get our boats ready, and then we head to Gunnersville. So I've had some good ones on Gunnersville. It feels great. It's a good time of year for me. There's going to be some fish shallow. There's going to be some fish deep. I'm going to be able to catch them. Everyone's going to be able to catch them a way that they want. So the next 3 events are Gunnersville, St. Lawrence River, and Champlain up in New York. So 3 great finish the year off. And basically I'm stopped. I'm not looking at the point. Like, I love this sport, and I'm so involved in it that I love looking at the leaderboard and the points and seeing who's catching them and what. But like, after Nearly Henry, I'm like, I'm not looking at the points anymore, because my effort and energy and work doesn't feel good when you do all of that and then you look and you're like way down the leaderboard. It just feels like hell.
Yep.
And you're like, that doesn't add up to me. So and it can affect you, because you're just like, man, what have I got to do? So I don't really know where I am in points now. I know I was creeping up after Fork, and I was having a good shot. I'm just not looking at it. I'm going fishing, and just excited to kind of finish the season off with 3 of like probably my 3 favorite fisheries in the US. And then we've still got, a couple more opens. We'll probably fish the US Open. There's a lot of fishing left in the season. So it's going to be exciting finish, and it's going to be good. So 1 week.
I'm liking the idea of Champlain on there. We might get you to see you throw the glide a bit in the elites, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I haven't. It was it was weird because they were biting the glide on Fork, and I didn't figure it out. But and then guys that are really good at bed fishing didn't catch them bed fishing, and I did. It was weird how it sort of flip flopped like that. But Gunnersville has potential to be a really good glide bait bite, and so does Champlain. So Been on live a couple times this year, but it'd be good to get back on there and get the Aussies fired up. But yeah, it's so cool to see the support and stuff. When I was catching them at Fork, you just seeing everyone getting fired up. The support has been growing and growing and growing, and we're seeing that, and we really appreciate it.
That's awesome, mate. Have you and Gussie got together with your blue trophies and put them together and just gone, we are studs?
We haven't. He's got it up in Canada. It's probably sitting on a frozen lake up there somewhere. But I'd love to get a picture with him, with the two of us, because that was really cool. We were there for his win. We went back and watched him win and got to celebrate with him. So that was really cool.
Awesome, mate. When international opens again, hypothetical situation, you get to come back to Australia at the end of the year and fish the Barra Tour with 3 elite pros. Who are you choosing to come across? Who are going to just snap their doodle off more than anyone else catching a Barra?
I know, that's like I talk Australia up all the time to everyone, and like they're all so jacked to get over there. We'd actually organised for Gussie and Brandon to come over last year, right before everything went down, and so that was going to happen. They were ready to go, but that's Gussie and Brandon and probably Swindle. I reckon if we can get those 3 over, I reckon that'd be a pretty good versatile group of guys. And to see them winding a swim bait back and get a barra bite, I want to be there and see that first reaction.
You know what I want to see? I want to see one of you do that. You know how the fish gets close to the boat over there and they hit the free spool and they let line out? I want to see him do that on a 1.20 Barra and see what happens.
Let the line, click the button.
Yeah, just hit the button. Next minute, you've got no braid left.
No, I've enjoyed that. I got to take Kevin Short and Carey, and they both caught their first Barra. Kayla fished for 6 days straight and never got one because she was... with the largemouth, they bite and you wait a little bit and then you set the hook. So I'd instilled that in her so much that when she was getting the barra bite, she couldn't help but wait a second, and I'd be saying strike, and then
spitting it out,
miss it, and they'd be chafed up the leader. So Kayla's pretty excited to get back there and try and catch a barra as well.
That's awesome, mate. Well, we really appreciate you've given us an extensive review of your year so far. Thanks for joining us on ABT Live, mate. I know all of the ABT guys were cheering for you. How did you like the shout-out from the Grafton Services Club there? We had the briefing and we did the camera around. That was the whole crew going crazy for you, mate.
That was as cool as it gets. I woke up and I had a message from you and it had that video on there, and I just played it in the morning, and Kayla and I watched it, and I was like, that choked me up a little bit for sure. I was like, that's as cool as it gets. And I posted it that morning, I think. And, you know, the Americans and stuff over here and people, they know about the support, but when they see something like that, they're like, wow, that's really cool to see how the Australians are following, you know, the US tour and supporting me as well. It's pretty awesome. So I'm always proud and always thinking when I'm catching them, I'm thinking I'm taking everyone with me. It's never really about me. I'm always, when I'm catching them, I'm thinking of everyone at home, my family and Kayla, and all the support I have from all you guys. I'm taking you all with us. So hopefully we can finish the season off strong.
Awesome, mate. Great luck. Thanks for joining us on ABT Live.
Thanks, mate. We're in the boat. We're rigging. This is what it looks like. Shops loaded, and I got Miller's loading everywhere, and Gussie's doing the same. We're watching Bassmaster, watching live up there of old Gunnersville events. This is sort of what it is. We're both talking, both studying and dialing different baits in. We'll go down to the lake here and fish them, and we're going to fish Nickerjack, which is just above Gunnersville, and get dialed in. It's full throttle, so we appreciate it. Good to talk to you, mate.
Good luck. Cheers.
See you guys.
Well, there you go. You can never blame Carl Jocenson for forgetting where his roots are. We've loved him ever since he won his first check when he was about 14 years old, and very respectful of his fans, very respectful of other anglers, and it's great to hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories about what it's like to fish the Elite Series. Hey, we all want to do it. He's the only one that's sold everything and gone to do it, so great to see him succeed. And thanks for joining us, Carl. It was great. Now, I know a lot of you are hanging around because you want to find out who won the competitions, especially the 13 fishing reel, nearly $500 worth of reel there. Now, let's start off with where you're watching from. Let's get to the big one later on. Kent Scott from Victoria Point was watching on YouTube. Kent, can you send us a message on our Facebook page and let us know what your address is? Kent Scott from Victoria Point. We're going to send you one of the Tackle Titan packs with the mini and the big lure rack for your tools and your lures. The other one on Facebook, Trent Blake from Ipswich. I think that might be the Trent that competes in the ABT events. Trent, we probably know your address, but flick us a message on Facebook as well, just to confirm that we've got your right address in the system there. And you too will get one of the Tackle Titan packs. Now, the 13 fishing reel, the question was, what would you like to see a 13 fishing rod designed for? An honourable mention went to Paul Langley. Nearly got there via the schmoozing Nicole method. That was it, wasn't it? Yes, close, but no cigar for you, Paul. Well done from Aberglasson. Shaggy Prime Time, watching on YouTube. Don't know what your real name is, but if you are Shaggy Prime Time on YouTube and you wanted a barra weapon, 6 to 10 kilos, 6 foot 6 inches to land my very first barra and hopefully the bucket list meter, Shaggy Prime Time, well, if they design that rod, you can throw this reel onto it. So get onto Facebook, onto Australian Bass Tournament's Facebook page, send us a message, let us know what your real name is and your address, and we can get that reel to you. So that's nearly it for tonight. We've had a really good show. It's been a long show. Everyone likes talking this week. And what we're going to do is we're going to finish off with the typical room clearer. Thank you very much to Nicole for sitting behind the scenes over here. No one can, you're just waving. No one can see you, not in front of the camera. For putting it all together, she organises all the interviews and does all the hard work. I just sit here and take all the glory. Thank you very much to all of our people that have joined us this week. And thank you very much to, of course, to all of the ABT sponsors that make all of this possible. The room clearer for today are going to be the highlights from day 2 at that Bassman event at the Clarence in the 13 Fishing Bass Series. It features a lot of Chris Banks's fish, a lot of fish from the field. It's a great 15 minutes of viewing. We'll catch you next month on ABT Lockdown Live.
Not lockdown.
Not lockdown. It's just ABT Live. Do it again.
How good was the Clarence this year? The Bassman round of the 13 Fishing Bass Pro Series was held on a post-flood Clarence, and Chris Banks came from 5th to 1st to win it with 2 bags over 5 kilograms. Here's some of his action.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Yeah, got it. On the board, baby. You sunk a buzzbait back, and it hit it. Yep. He came up for it, didn't he?
It did come up. Come straight out of the hole. Number 1.
And like all ABT Bass Pro events, it was a shared weight event, which means that Chris and his non-boater Jason DeForest Haddleton had to catch 4 fish between them, and they both contributed.
Number 2.
And we quickly learned that they like 2 things on the mid-north coast of New South Wales: bass fishing and country music. And so social media lets us play his highlights. Let's insert some country music of our own.
There's that, stopper.
Right. 1.94.
Upgrading a 500 grammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not too many people in bass fishing that forget Brian Everingham's narrow win in the Richmond River Grand Final a few years ago. Well, he proved he knows how to catch bass in rivers and finished this time in second place. Local young angler Dylan Walsh fished only one spot on the way to his third place finish. And of course, before this event, the question that everyone was asking was Mike Nelson going to be able to make it win after win after win? And after dropping 7 kilos on the scales on day one, not many people thought he'd fail to get his limit and only bring 3 fish in on day 2.
They're smaller to go. You get 4 and then not great. I guess you don't really worry about it now. Not sure. Missed him again?
I went to fish on.
Yeah.
Fish?
Oh yeah?
Look at that. I've done him.
Oh.
And here's a highlight clip from Dane Price and his non-boater, losing a fish on a jig and then catching the same fish on a crankbait. Check this action out.
came back. Oh no, he's alright.
He's got the jig. If he's got the jig in the mouth, I'm claiming him.
Hey, nice. A good one.
Hasn't got the jig in his mouth.
Once you swallow it.
He did.
He has got your jig in the mouth.
Has he?
Your jig is in its mouth. That's pretty cool. James' jig down the mouth and my lure.
Noisy area.
Now, Chris Hickson from Taree is a noted river rat and did what he does best on the Clarence, catching big bass from gnarly structure.
We're swimming at it. Oh. Net. He yanked back. No, he's not as big as I thought he was. He's just fucking having a go. Just having a go.
Oh, shit.
Oh, actually having a real good go. Oh, that big cranky. Thank you, bud. We'll have him.
Yellow?
He's very close to you, yeah. Got a nice belly.
Miss a good one?
No, I thought I did. He's swimming at me. Little one.
Yeah.
I reckon that's why I was missing him.
Sure he's a little one?
Probably upgrade. Yeah, we don't. I can't remember what was in there.
No one can blame Mitchell Cone for not giving everything a go. We saw him last at a brim tournament. He's a master of Glenbourne, and here he is in a bass tournament on a river and catching them.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, fight him, you're right, just keep going. Is he a better one? Oh, a bit better. Yeah.
Oh, right, I don't think I've seen those.
By now, I suppose you're thinking this bridge has been pretty popular amongst competitors, and local angler Anthony Duff caught a couple of crackers off it.
Now this one's got like a weedless hook on it. Love that sound.
Just hit the. Have to drill that. Oh, look at me drag. I'm gonna need more drag. On the Berkeley. On the Berkeley. Sweet.
Drag sounds awfully nice. On the Berkeley? Leader's just there, so he's not too far down.
upgrade.
It's not even on. Not even in the mouth.
Yeah. Little fatty.
Yep.
Want to check out the full results and photo galleries from this event? Visit www.abt.org.au.